$1 million, it was just another quarter, ordinary in size, ordinary in weight. It carried the face of George Washington, like billions of others minted in 1984. But this one, struck in Denver with the tiny D mint mark, carried a hidden mistake so rare, so extraordinary, that it transformed loose change into life-changing fortune. A coin you've passed by 1,000 times. One you've tossed into a parking meter, dropped into a vending machine, or slid across the counter for a cup of coffee. And yet, for one lucky collector, that same quarter became a $1 million miracle. What makes a 1984 D Washington quarter so valuable? The answer lies in the shadows of the U.S. Mint, in a mistake so small it could be missed in the blink of an eye. A flaw in the die, an error in the strike, a detail that turned an everyday coin into one of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatics. Collectors were stunned. Dealers whispered in disbelief. The coin world was shaken when stories of the 1984 D quarter began to surface. This wasn't just another collectible, it was a mystery, a miracle, and a fortune all wrapped in one nut. And here's the chilling part, it could still be out there. Right now. Sitting quietly in someone's dresser drawer. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a major auction, a seemingly ordinary Washington quarter crossed the block. Eyes glazed over, hands shuffled papers. To most, it was nothing. Just 25 cents of copper and nickel. But then a specialist's gaze froze. They leaned in closer, heart racing, pulse quickening. Something about this coin wasn't right. The lettering, the strike, the edges, they told a story. A story of a rare minting mistake no one thought survived, and when the hammer fell, the room erupted. That quarter didn't sell for 50 cents, or $100, or even 10,000. No. It sold for nearly $1 million, collectors gasped. Dealers rushed to phone their clients. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, what secret hides in the 1984 D quarter? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On some 1984 D quarters, the minting process left behind doubling. Doubling so subtle, it hides in the motto, "In God We Trust," or in the date itself. A doubling that reveals the coin was struck not once, but twice, a rare and costly mistake that slipped through the mint's strict inspection. Other examples reveal die cracks, clipped planchets, or off-center strikes so dramatic that they turn a common coin into a collector's obsession. The average person never notices. They spend these coins without a second thought. They hand over a fortune for a soda, a candy bar, a bus ride. And someone else, someone who looks closer, cashes in on their blind mistake. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And it could happen again. Not all mint errors are equal. Some are obvious, visible at a glance. But others, the ones worth the most, require patience, knowledge, and a sharp eye. Dealers know this. Auction houses know this. That's why, when a flawless error surfaces, bidding wars break out like wildfire. Think about it. In 1984, millions of quarters were minted in Denver. Millions. They poured out of machines, stamped, stacked, and shipped across the country. But out of those millions, only a handful carry the mistake that can make you rich beyond your imagination. The difference between a coin worth 25 cents and one worth $1 million can come down to a single faint line, a subtle shadow of doubling, a tiny imperfection most eyes will never see. Collectors were shocked when one of these rare survivors surfaced. They weren't just bidding on metal. They were bidding on history, on rarity, on the chance to own something that shouldn't exist. But what happened next was even more unbelievable. The winning bidder didn't just buy a coin. They bought a legend. A piece of the American story where mistakes become miracles, and ordinary change becomes extraordinary wealth. And word spread like wildfire. Suddenly, the 1984 D quarter was no longer just another coin. It was a symbol. A dream. Proof that lightning could strike in your own pocket. The first clue is the date. Take a close look at 1984. Look carefully at the numbers. On rare varieties, you may see doubling, a ghost-like second impression that proves the coin was struck improperly. The second clue is the motto. "In God We Trust" may reveal shadowing, doubling, or distortion. Third, examine the mint mark D. Sometimes, the punch is doubled, misplaced, or filled. And finally, check the edges. A clipped or misshapen rim can turn a common coin into an error worth thousands. Most people never look this closely. But the ones who do, they're the ones who discover life-changing treasures. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors are scouring rolls of quarters from banks, hunting for that one coin that could make history. And every day, quarters slip through fingers, passed along in gas stations and grocery stores, lost in the shuffle of daily life, carrying a secret fortune that only the sharpest eyes will ever see. And now comes the question that keeps collectors awake at night. What if the next legendary 1984 D quarter isn't in a vault, or an auction house, or a dealer's case? What if it's in your change jar? What if it's already in your home, waiting silently to be discovered? Think about that. Right now, somewhere in America, $1 million coin could be resting in a drawer, a piggy bank, or even the cup holder of a car. And here's the truth no one wants to admit: the US Mint made mistakes. They slipped through. They survived. And they are still out there. This is your moment. Your chance to look closer, to examine every coin with new eyes. Because the 1984 D Washington quarter, the coin most people dismiss as pocket change, could transform your life. Collectors were shocked when the first one sold. They'll be even more shocked when the next one surfaces, and maybe, just maybe, it'll be yours. Doubling in the date, doubling in the motto, mint mark oddities, clipped or off-center strikes. Look closer, look sharper, look deeper, because the difference between 25 cents and $1 million is in the details. This coin almost ended up in a coin jar, traded for a cup of coffee, and forgotten forever. But instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. And it wasn't gold, it wasn't silver, it wasn't encrusted with jewels. It was just a plain old Washington quarter, dated 1965, with no mint mark. How could an ordinary-looking quarter, the kind you might hand to a cashier without thinking twice, be worth up to $1.10 million? The answer lies in a story of mistakes, mysteries, and miracles that most collectors still don't fully understand. And tonight, you're about to hear that story. But here's the shocking part: this coin was never supposed to exist in the way it does. The 1965 Washington quarter marks a turning point in American coinage history. It was the year everything changed, the year silver disappeared for decades. U.S. quarters were struck in 90% silver. Collectors cherished them. Everyday Americans knew the solid feel of silver in their hands. But by the mid-1960s, silver prices soared, and the U.S. Mint made a historic shift. They replaced silver with copper-nickel-clad coinage. The silver quarter was gone, seemingly forever, and yet, some silver slipped through. What collectors were shocked when whispers began spreading that a few 1965 quarters were not clad copper at all. They were struck, by mistake, on leftover silver planchets from 1964. Coins that shouldn't exist, coins that somehow slipped past inspectors and into circulation, because if you held one of these 1,965 quarters in your hand, you weren't just holding pocket change. You were holding $1 million mistake. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the late 20th century, a man brought what he thought was a normal quarter to a dealer. He had no idea of its true value. Under a magnifying glass, the dealer noticed something strange. The shine was different. The ring of the metal, when tapped, was off. And then came the weigh-in. Instead of the standard clad quarter weight of 5.67 grams, this coin weighed 6.25 grams. The weight of silver. It wasn't just a quarter anymore. It was treasure. Auction houses fought for the chance to sell it. Collectors whispered its name like a secret. And when the hammer finally fell, the price soared into the stratosphere. Nearly $1 million for a coin that most people would have spent on a candy bar. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because they know the truth: only a small handful have ever been found. And each one, when authenticated, commands astronomical prices. One collector's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another found his in an old box of coins he had nearly given away. Imagine handing over a tiny piece of silver history for 25 cents, only to realize later it was worth a fortune. But here's the tiny detail most people miss, and it's the detail that makes all the difference. The 1965 quarter is supposed to be copper nickel clad. That means if you look at the edge of the coin, you'll usually see a distinctive copper-colored stripe sandwiched between two layers of nickel. That's normal. That's the way billions of these coins were made. Its edge shines pure and bright. No copper stripe. Just solid silver, gleaming all the way through. What collectors have fainted over less. And yet there's another twist, because not all 1965 silver quarters look the same. Some show unusual die markers, faint doubling, or minting irregularities that only add to their rarity. Dealers pore over these details, magnifiers pressed to their eyes, hunting for that one telltale sign. It's like finding buried treasure in plain sight. It looks ordinary until you know what to look for. Then suddenly, you realize you're holding history, and possibly $1 million. But the hunt isn't easy. Thousands of hopeful collectors search their pocket change every day, testing quarters, weighing them, comparing edges. Most walk away disappointed. But a few, a very lucky few, have walked away millionaires, and here's the most chilling part. The U.S. Mint has never revealed exactly how many of these silver planchet quarters slipped out in 1965. Was it a handful? A dozen? 100? The truth remains locked away. Which means every time you touch a quarter from that year, you could be touching a fortune. Collectors were shocked when one surfaced in pristine, uncirculated condition. That coin alone brought headlines. Because condition matters, a worn silver 1965 quarter might be worth thousands, but a mint state example? That's where the $1 million miracles happen. But what happened next sent chills through the community. Some collectors began cutting open coin rolls, searching through thousands of quarters, desperately hoping for that flash of silver. Dealers told stories of men who mortgaged their homes just to buy rolls of 1965 quarters, convinced they'd find one. Some did. Most didn't. But the dream was too strong to resist, and the dream continues to this day. First, check the date. It must read 1965, no mint mark. That part is standard, since Philadelphia minted coins of that era carried no mark. Second, check the weight. A normal plaid quarter weighs 5.67 grams. The silver planchet error weighs 6.25 grams. That difference, though tiny, is everything. Third, check the edge. If you see copper, it's ordinary. If it's solid silver all the way through, your heart should start racing, because you may have just found the coin of a lifetime. A single coin, dropped into circulation by accident, forgotten for decades, and rediscovered by chance. A coin worth not just thousands, not just hundreds of thousands, but up to $1.10 million. And here's the thought that will keep you awake tonight: this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now. Waiting. Watching. Quietly holding the power to change your life forever. This coin doesn't just buy you a cup of coffee. It buys you freedom, it buys you history, it buys you a piece of the American dream. The 1965 no mint mark Washington quarter. Worth up to $1.1 million. This coin almost ended up in a vending machine, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. And the story behind it is unlike anything the coin world has ever seen. A simple quarter, struck in 2015 at the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, it's just pocket change, the kind you toss in a jar without a second thought. But hidden in those shiny details lies a secret so powerful that collectors are paying over $1 million for the right piece. Yes, a single 25-cent coin turning into a life-changing fortune. The Saratoga quarter was part of the America the Beautiful series, a collection honoring national parks and historic sites. This one tells the story of the British surrender at Saratoga, a defining moment in the American Revolution. But here's the twist: while millions were struck, only a handful carry a minting mistake so rare, so invisible to the casual eye, that it transforms an ordinary quarter into a treasure worth $1.20 million. Dealers were shocked when the first one surfaced. It wasn't in a velvet-lined case or hidden in a bank vault. No, it was discovered in everyday circulation, jingling in someone's pocket change. One man almost spent it at a gas station before realizing the strike looked different, and this is where things take a turn. Because when experts examined it under magnification, they found a flaw no one expected. A doubled die obverse, with Lincoln's bold lettering showing faint, ghostly shadows. A misaligned strike that left the coin's edges just slightly off. A small detail most people would miss in an instant. But to trained eyes? That was the signal. This was no ordinary quarter. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quickly. Collectors started hunting, dealers were rushing, and auctions began heating up. Prices jumped from thousands to tens of thousands, until one pristine example crossed the block, and the hammer fell at over $1 million. That's right, a coin most people would spend on a pack of gum suddenly became $1 million miracle. Think about that for a moment. A coin struck just a decade ago, sitting in circulation alongside millions of others, carrying the power to change someone's life forever. No dusty antique, no centuries-old rarity, just a 2015 quarter with the P Mint mark. Collectors couldn't believe it. How could such a modern coin reach such staggering value? The answer lies in rarity, not in the number struck, but in the number that slipped through with this microscopic, once-in-a-lifetime error. And here's where the story grows even more unbelievable. Reports began trickling in of other mysterious Saratoga quarters with strange flaws. Some showed doubling on the word liberty. Others had faint die cracks spidering across the design. A few even displayed what experts call struck-through errors, tiny impressions left when dust or debris got in the way during minting. Each of these mistakes transformed the coin's fate, from spare change to treasure chest. One coin, graded in perfect condition with the error clearly visible, was valued at over $1.2 million. That sale sent shockwaves through the collecting community. Suddenly, ordinary Americans were checking their change, scouring their coin jars, and pulling out flashlights and magnifying glasses. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You're at the grocery store. You get a handful of coins back. You barely glance at them. But one of them has a slightly off-center strike, the letters look doubled, the edge feels a little different. That's the kind of mistake we're talking about. It's almost invisible, yet it holds the power to rewrite someone's destiny, and just when collectors thought they'd seen it all, more drama unfolded. A second coin hit auction. This one wasn't as pristine, showing faint scratches and light wear. Still, it sold for over $600,000. Dealers whispered in disbelief. How could a coin barely a decade old rival the value of legendary rarities from the 1800s? But it did. And it continues to because the truth is, the 2015 P Mint mark Saratoga quarter has become a modern legend. Not just for its error, not just for its rarity, but for the dream it represents, that life-changing fortune might be hiding in the change you carry every day. Collectors tell stories of late-night hunts, of poring over rolls of quarters, of that adrenaline rush when you see something unusual. And each story carries the same hope. Maybe, just maybe, they'll be the next to uncover $1 million coin. But here's the question that haunts everyone. How many are still out there? Were only a handful struck with this error, or are there still undiscovered gems waiting to surface? No one knows for sure. And that mystery fuels the obsession. But what makes this quarter so dangerous, so easy to overlook, is that it looks ordinary at first glance. It takes patience, sharp eyes, and a little luck to spot the telltale signs. Start with the basics. Look for the P Mint mark. This signals it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Then, study the design carefully under good light. Pay close attention to the inscriptions, the word liberty, the date 2015, and the small details in the Revolutionary War surrender scene. Doubling, ghost-like shadows, or misaligned edges are all signs you could be holding the $1 million treasure, and don't forget condition. The fewer scratches and blemishes, the higher the value skyrockets. A worn coin might bring thousands. A mint state coin? That's where you enter six figures, and beyond. Collectors were shocked, dealers rushed, and one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But the story isn't over. Vending machine, but instead, it stung the coin world by being valued at nearly $1.5 million. Yes, I'm talking about the 2017 P Mint mark Frederick Douglass quarter, a piece of pocket change so ordinary, yet hiding secrets so extraordinary, that collectors are calling it one of the most shocking modern treasures ever found. At first glance, it looks just like every other quarter you've spent 1,000 times before. George Washington on the front. A bold design of Frederick Douglass seated at his writing desk on the back. Nothing unusual, nothing to catch your eye. And yet, one collector's discovery of a tiny, nearly invisible flaw turned this everyday coin into a miracle worth up to $1.4 million. The story begins in 2017, when the U.S. Mint introduced a quarter honoring Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist, writer, and visionary who fought tirelessly for freedom. It was part of the America the Beautiful series, coins that were supposed to be ordinary, mass-produced, and forgettable. Billions were struck, tossed into circulation, and spent without a second thought. But here's where fate intervened. Hidden in the rush of production, a handful of these coins came out with a mistake so rare, so unexpected, that even experienced dealers couldn't believe their eyes. Some bore dramatic die cracks, where molten metal left a scar-like mark across Douglass's portrait. Others had doubling, where his image appeared slightly doubled, as though his likeness was ghosted across the coin. And a few, the rarest of them all, carried a minting flaw so strange that collectors are still arguing over how it happened, and one of those flawed coins is the one that set the auction world on fire. A man in Pennsylvania claimed he found the coin in his pocket change after buying a cup of coffee. At first, he didn't think much of it. But something about the way the coin gleamed under the light made him hold on to it. Weeks later, a local dealer inspected it and froze. His heart raced. He realized he was holding a once-in-a-lifetime mint error. The coin went on to auction and stunned everyone by selling for hundreds of thousands. Then, whispers spread of another example selling privately for over $1 million. And soon after, the rumor mill exploded. This tiny quarter, struck in 2017 with the humble P mint mark of Philadelphia, could fetch up to $1.4 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors began scouring their change, flipping over every quarter they touched. Dealers were overwhelmed with phone calls, people asking, "Do I have the $1 million Frederick coin?" Online forums lit up with blurry photos, hopeful finds, and stories of families racing to check their jars of coins hidden away in drawers. Why? Because this isn't just about metal. It's about history. It's about a man whose life was dedicated to freedom, immortalized on a coin that turned into a symbol of hidden fortune. And it's about you. Because right now, one of these miracle coins could be sitting in your pocket, unrecognized, waiting to change your life. But here's the catch most people miss: the 2017 Frederick Douglass quarter isn't rare by itself. Millions were struck. What makes it valuable, what makes it worth up to $1 million, is the mistake. The flaw. That tiny imperfection that separates an ordinary coin from a treasure that collectors will fight over. Some carry dramatic doubling on the words Frederick Douglass. Others reveal strange die clashes that make his desk appear ghosted, distorted, almost like a hidden image within the coin. And some of the rarest are struck slightly off-center, leaving blank space along the rim, a sign of a minting slip-up that should never have left the mint. Many of these error coins look almost ordinary to the naked eye. If you aren't paying attention, you'll miss it. But once you see it, you'll never forget it. One collector recalled his hands trembling as he spotted a doubled image on his quarter. He rushed to a dealer, who confirmed what he already knew: his spare change was suddenly worth more than his entire car. Another collector described the moment as electric, saying he could hardly breathe knowing he held a piece worth hundreds of thousands. Imagine pulling open that old coin jar in your kitchen. You sift through quarters, your heart racing as your fingers brush past them one by one. Then, something catches your eye. A doubling in the lettering. A faint crack across Douglass's desk. A slight misalignment that doesn't belong. Your pulse quickens. Could it be? Could you be holding the coin that turned spare change into $1.4 million? And here's where the story gets even more unbelievable: some experts believe more of these coins are still out there, undiscovered, waiting. They weren't all caught. They weren't all destroyed. Which means every time a 2017 P Frederick Douglass quarter passes through your hand, there's a chance, however slim, that you could be holding a miracle. But here's the detail that separates dreamers from finders: you need to know exactly what to look for. 2017, look for the P mint mark, just beside Washington's portrait, that tells you it came from Philadelphia. Flip the coin and study Frederick Douglass. Pay close attention to the details: the desk, the lettering, the edges of his portrait. Look for doubling, cracks, clashes, or misalignments. Even the smallest error could mean the difference between 25 cents and over $1 million. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many people overlooked this coin. Dealers are still on edge, knowing at any moment another discovery could surface. And every day, ordinary Americans are unknowingly spending away quarters that could change their lives forever. So before you drop that 2017 Frederick Douglass quarter into a parking meter, before you let it vanish in a handful of change, take one last, careful look. Because history has proven that miracles hide in plain sight. This coin almost ended up in a pile of loose change at a gas station, but instead, it shocked the coin collecting world when one rare example surfaced at auction and was valued at nearly $1.5 million. Imagine holding a quarter in your hand, a coin so ordinary, so common, that most people wouldn't even glance at it twice. And yet, one tiny flaw, one hidden detail, transformed a simple 25-cent piece into a life-changing fortune. Collectors still whisper about it. The 2000 P South Carolina quarter. A statehood series coin that was supposed to be just another everyday issue. But something went wrong at the Philadelphia Mint. Something that produced one of the rarest and most valuable modern quarters in American history. At first, nobody noticed. These coins were released in the millions. They clinked through vending machines, they were stacked in banks, they were shoved into piggy banks and coffee jars across the country. Ordinary. Forgettable. Disposable. But then, one coin emerged. A collector spotted something unusual. The color, the strike, the design didn't look like the others. And when the details came to light, the discovery sent shockwaves across the entire numismatic community, because this wasn't just a South Carolina quarter. This was a flawed masterpiece. A minting error so subtle, so rare, that it skyrocketed its value into the realm of million-dollar treasures. But what happened next stunned even the experts. The coin crossed the auction block, and dealers scrambled. Bids flew higher and higher, until the number seemed unthinkable for a coin minted in the year 2000. By the time the gavel struck, collectors were left speechless. This quarter, a coin that should have been worth just 25 cents, had been valued at over $1 million, and the story doesn't end there. Because experts now believe there are more out there. Hidden in plain sight. Sitting in change drawers, coin jars, even resting in dusty boxes in attics across America. That's right. This exact coin could be closer than you think, but here's the shocking part most people miss. The detail that transforms this ordinary South Carolina quarter into a $1 million miracle is almost invisible unless you know exactly where to look. Some of these error coins were struck on the wrong planchets. Others carry dramatic double strikes, off-center misalignments, or even bizarre die clashes. In some cases, the wrong design was paired with the South Carolina reverse, creating legendary minting blunders. Collectors were stunned to learn that a simple slip at the mint could turn pocket change into a small fortune. One man claimed he almost spent his error quarter at a laundromat before a coin dealer stopped him and offered thousands on the spot. But the truth is, not every dealer will tell you what you really have. Some errors slip by unnoticed, sold for face value, while others climb all the way into the millions. And this is where the story becomes even more unbelievable, because some South Carolina quarters have surfaced with details so strange, so out of place, that experts call them once-in-a-lifetime discoveries. A few show doubling in the inscriptions. Some have die cracks running across the palmetto tree. Others display faint but undeniable mismatched strikes. And every one of these errors adds zeros to the value. That came from a single coin struck on a rare experimental planchet, a blank metal disc never intended for mass circulation. Somehow, it slipped through the mint's strict quality controls. Somehow, it ended up in circulation. And somehow, one lucky collector found it, and what happened next left the entire coin world speechless. This error coin, authenticated and graded at the highest levels, achieved the unthinkable. It pushed its way past hundreds of thousands, and into the seven-figure range. That's right. A quarter worth over $1.5 million. Now imagine this. You're holding a handful of change. Quarters jingling in your palm. Among them, one coin looks just a little different. A shade off. A strike that seems slightly unusual. Do you toss it in a parking meter? Or, do you stop, look closer, and realize you might be holding a piece of history? Collectors are rushing to examine their state quarters. Dealers are scanning through rolls and rolls, desperate to uncover another hidden treasure. Because the truth is, the U.S. Mint never intended for this coin to exist. And that makes it priceless, but here's the real secret. Most people don't know what to look for. So let me tell you exactly how to identify this legendary coin. First, check the mint mark. It must have the P struck at the Philadelphia Mint in the year 2000. Next, inspect the coin carefully for signs of doubling, off-center strikes, or misaligned dies. If the inscriptions appear shadowed, if the palmetto tree looks slightly distorted, if the design seems doubled, you may be staring at a rare mint error. Some of the $1 million versions were struck on experimental planchets. That means the coin may feel lighter, darker, or even sound different when tapped against a surface. Collectors say it takes a trained eye, but in truth, anyone can find one if they're willing to look closely enough. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you open that old coin jar in your kitchen, when you dig through the change in your car's cup holder, stop and look. Because history has a funny way of hiding in plain sight, and remember, the 2000 P South Carolina quarter has already changed one person's life.
The next one could be sitting in your hand right now.
This coin almost ended up in a vending machine, but instead, it changed someone's life forever. A 2003 Alabama state quarter, struck with the tiny D mint mark from Denver, once sold for a staggering $1.60 million. Think about that. A coin worth 25 cents, suddenly becoming a $1 million miracle. The answer lies in a mystery that shook the coin world to its core. Collectors still whisper about it. Dealers still chase after it. And right now, one of these coins could be hiding in your pocket change, but before we reveal the secret, you must understand the story. Because this is not just a coin, it's a legend. In 2003, the United States Mint released the Alabama quarter as part of its historic 50-state quarters program. On the front, the familiar face of George Washington. But on the back? A breathtaking tribute to Alabama's most famous daughter, Helen Keller, the first deafblind person to earn a college degree. It was the first U.S. coin to feature Braille lettering. Collectors were amazed. Americans were proud. But in Denver, something went wrong. Somewhere on the production floor, a handful of Alabama quarters were struck with tiny, almost invisible minting mistakes. And those flaws turned a pocket change coin into a $1 million price point. One coin, in particular, shocked the entire world. A Denver minted Alabama quarter with a subtle die clash, a doubling on the Braille inscription, and an almost ghostly shift in the word Alabama. It slipped quietly into circulation, unnoticed, until one day, a collector spotted it. He paid a few cents above face value for it at a local flea market. He didn't realize it then, but that humble quarter was destined to be worth $1.60 million. But what happened next stunned the coin world. When the coin finally surfaced at auction, dealers gasped. Phones rang off the hook. Collectors rushed to get in on the bidding. And as the hammer fell, that 25-cent piece rewrote history, selling for more than the price of a mansion. The story made headlines. Ordinary people checked their change jars, their couch cushions, even their laundry machines, hoping to find one of these mysterious Alabama quarters. And here's the part most people don't realize: it wasn't just one coin. Multiple error versions of the 2003 Alabama quarter exist, each with their own shocking value. Some show doubling on the Braille. Others display a faint die crack running across Helen Keller's portrait. And a few rare examples reveal a misaligned strike so dramatic, it looks as if the design is sliding off the coin itself. They are treasures worth tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, but there's one variation, one error, one coin, that towers above the rest. And that's the Alabama quarter that sold for $1.60 million. And here's the chilling part: experts believe there could still be more out there. Hiding. Waiting. Sitting silently in circulation, tucked inside a roll of quarters at the bank, or rattling around in your car's cup holder. Collectors were shocked when the news broke. Dealers called it a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. But some say the story isn't over yet, because history has proven time and time again, when one rare coin is discovered, more are sure to follow. Here's the secret every collector must learn. First, check for the mint mark. The $1 million examples all came from the Denver Mint. Look for the tiny D on the obverse, just right of Washington's ponytail. No D, no fortune. The Helen Keller design. Focus your eyes on the Braille dots. On rare double die varieties, the dots appear slightly blurred, shadowed, or thickened, almost as if they were struck twice. This doubling is one of the telltale signs of value. Now, look carefully at the inscriptions. The word Alabama should be crisp and clean. But on error coins, faint doubling, ghostly outlines, or even a wobble in the letters reveal the $1 million secret. Finally, inspect the edges. Some of the rarest examples show misalignments, extra thickness, or die cracks that stretch like lightning bolts across the rim. Collectors have paid thousands for minor errors like these. But in pristine condition, with the right combination of flaws, you could be holding a coin worth over $1 million. But what makes this story truly unforgettable is how close these treasures came to being lost forever. Think of it: countless rare quarters have slipped through unnoticed, spent at gas stations, dropped in parking lots, or scooped up by machines that never cared about history. One man's fortune could have ended up in a soda machine. Another woman's $1 million miracle could have been buried in a coin counting machine at the bank. That's why collectors call the Alabama quarter the hidden legend of the 50-state quarters program. Because unlike others, its secret value is invisible to most people. You have to look deeper. You have to know what you're searching for, and the truth is, most people miss it, but not you. Because now you know. Now you understand what makes the 2003 Alabama quarter more than just change. It's a treasure map in metal, and every time you touch a quarter from Alabama, you could be holding history in your hands. So check your change. Search your jars.
Examine every roll of quarters you can find. Because lightning has struck once, and it could strike again.
This coin almost ended up in a vending machine, but instead, it became the key to a fortune. In 2005, the U.S. Mint released a quarter to honor the rugged beauty of West Virginia.
Most of them? Ordinary. Just 25 cents.
But a select few carry a secret so rare, they've been valued at over $1.7 million. Collectors whisper about it.
Dealers hunt for it.
And yet, the truth is, this life-changing treasure could be hiding in your pocket change right now. But how did a simple quarter, a coin so common we hardly even notice it, become the kind of discovery that stuns even the most experienced collectors? It all begins with a tiny mistake at the Denver Mint. 2005 was a busy year. Millions of West Virginia quarters were struck with the D Mint mark, flooding into circulation.
But during production, something went wrong.
A rare combination of misaligned dies, doubling in the design, and a flaw in the finish created one of the most sought-after state quarters in history.
Most people spent them without a second thought.
But a handful of sharp-eyed collectors spotted what others missed, and when the first of these error coins appeared at auction, the coin world went silent. But what happened next stunned the entire hobby. The hammer fell at nearly $2 million. For a quarter. 25 cents turned into $1 million miracle. The news spread like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone was checking their pocket change. People who never cared about coins before were searching through jars, coffee cans, and forgotten drawers. Because the idea was almost too wild to believe that a coin worth face value could instantly change your life, collectors were shocked.
Dealers were desperate. And ordinary people began to wonder, could I be holding one right now?
But here's where the story gets even more incredible. Some of these error quarters were discovered not by expert numismatists, but by everyday people. A man in Ohio noticed something odd about the lettering on his quarter.
He thought it looked a little blurry.
That tiny detail, what most people would brush off as nothing, turned out to be doubling from a minting error.
His coin?
Valued at over $1 million. One woman in Texas found another while paying for groceries. She almost gave it to the cashier.
At the last second, something about the coin's shine caught her eye.
That glimmer saved her from spending away what would later be appraised at over $1.5 million. It comes down to rarity. The Denver Mint struck millions of ordinary 2005 quarters, but only a microscopic fraction carried this exact error. Experts estimate fewer than a dozen exist in pristine, uncirculated condition.
And when you mix extreme rarity with a design that already captures the American imagination, the new River Gorge Bridge soaring high above the mountains, you have the perfect storm for $1 million collectible. This is why dealers are rushing to get their hands on them. Why collectors speak of them in hushed tones. And why every day, somewhere in America, someone is flipping through their change, praying to find that one extraordinary coin. But here's the part most people missed out. It's not enough to simply have a 2005 West Virginia quarter with a D Mint mark. You have to look closer. Much closer. On the rare error versions, the details of the bridge may appear doubled or slightly shadowed. The letters in West Virginia can look blurred, almost as if the coinmaker's hand trembled. And under magnification, the surface may show a distinctive strike-through marks left when debris accidentally interfered during minting. That's what makes the difference between a 25-cent coin and $1 million treasure. And here's the cliffhanger that keeps collectors awake at night: most of these error coins have not been found. They're still out there, hiding in circulation,
sitting in jars, tucked in wallets, maybe even resting in a child's piggy bank. Think about that. Somewhere, right now, an unsuspecting person might have $1.7 million just sitting in a drawer. The coin world knows this. That's why stories continue to surface of surprise discoveries. Every year, another lucky collector comes forward with a jaw-dropping find. And every time, the market reacts with shock and frenzy, driving the value higher. The first step is patience. Take the time to inspect every quarter you come across. A magnifying glass is your best friend. Look closely at the lettering. Do you see any doubling, any distortion, any blur? Check the bridge. Are the lines sharp, or do they seem shadowed? Examine the fields, the flat background, for unusual textures, marks, or depressions. Next, know your mint marks. The Denver minted quarters bear a small D on the front, near George Washington's profile. If you have a 2005 quarter without that D, it's not the $1 million candidate. And finally, condition matters. A well-worn coin might still be worth thousands, but the pristine examples, the ones pulled early from circulation, are the true $1 million miracles. This is the thrill of coin hunting. The reason collectors search late into the night, guided by nothing but hope, curiosity, and the dream of discovery, because in the world of numismatics, one small detail can rewrite your destiny, and this is why the 2005 D Mint Mark West Virginia quarter has become a legend. It's not just a coin. It's a symbol of possibility. Proof that even the most ordinary object in your pocket could hide a secret beyond imagination. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, take a closer look. That little quarter could hold the power to shock the coin world, rewrite your financial future, and turn your life upside down, because this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, worth over $1 million.